Hi there everybody, my name's Justin, I'm with PSP Kingston. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about lower body strengthening, and we're going to go through a fairly straightforward, simple session. We'll get to that in just a moment. I just want to make sure before we get started, everybody just takes a moment, just make sure to read the disclaimer below. Just want everybody to stay safe during these sessions, just when we're working out at home, make sure everybody gets the most out of it, but also make sure that everybody's doing okay with it as well. What I want to get to first actually here is we're just going to go through a little bit of a brief warm-up, about 5 minutes or so. So today's session is very much designed for somebody who does have a little bit of a gym setup at home. So kind of what we're looking for as far as equipment is that we do have a nice solid bench. Doesn't matter if it's adjustable or flat, something that is stable, can hold your weight. The other thing we are looking for the warm-up, I am going to show a little bit of foam rolling. If you do have one of these, great. If not, don't worry about it too much. The other thing that we are, of course, looking for to use as far as equipment-wise is going to be our squat rack, our bar, and our plates. If you don't have these and you do have something more akin to a heavy kettlebell or dumbbells, you can absolutely use those and instead be doing goblet squats along with us today. So let's get right into our warm-up here. We're going to start off with the foam roller. Very first thing that we are going to do before we get into the lower body is making sure that our back is nice and mobile. So very first thing, I'm going to place that foam roller just beneath my shoulder blades. I'm going to lift myself up off the floor, and we're just going to start digging that foam roller through the mid, the upper, and a little into the lower back here. So we don't want this to be hurting. It might be a little sore on people, that's okay. A little bit of discomfort's fine. Don't want pain though. And you can kind of just go side to side a little bit if you like. And then from here, what you're gonna do for me is just drop yourself back down to the floor, and you're just gonna let your back extend over that foam roller. So we're gonna do it kind of in little different stages here. I'd start up a little higher up the back, closer towards those shoulder blades. Now, you can cross the arms across the chest, you can reach them overhead, you can just kind of have them at your side, whatever you're most comfortable with. We're gonna let ourselves extend. We're gonna hold there for a few seconds. And just work on mobilizing that upper back, trying to get that spine into an extended position. Once I've worked there a little bit, I'll work myself a little lower down. And one more shift here. Go just a little lower. All right, so next up, because we are going to be using the hips quite a bit today, I would like to loosen up the glutes some. So I cross my leg over like this just to get a little deeper into those gluteal muscles. Don't feel like you have to. If this is kind of feeling a little severe on yourself, feel free to just keep that leg out nice and straight. And we want to make sure we're kind of shifting our weight kind of more from center line to the outside of the hip a little bit, just making sure we're getting through that whole range of that muscle. Those muscles, sorry. And we're going to make sure we get the other side as well. Might be a little different for you side to side, that's okay. That's what we're going to be working on a bit today. All right, now, some people may like to work through the quads a little bit. You can absolutely do that. This is one I usually don't do as much. I usually tend to have most of the tightness through the glutes. So this you can kind of balance your time spent on each one based on what you need. I'm just gonna move that foam roller out of the way here. So a couple little warm-ups just for our back we're gonna do first. So we're gonna work through our cat-cows. So flexing, extending through our spine. I've got my hips stacked right over my knees, shoulders stacked right over my wrists. I'm gonna tuck my chin into my chest, take a deep breath in. I'm gonna flex, rounding through my upper back. And breathe out, extending, squeezing those shoulder blades, extending that spine. And we're just gonna go back and forth here. I'm going to flip right onto my back here into our starting of our dead bug position here. So before we actually start any movement, want to make sure that our low back is pressed right into the ground. That's going to help engage our core, keep our back nice and healthy while we're going through these dead bug movements. What you're going to do, you're going to drop your left arm back behind you, then straighten out your right leg. So you're not quite touching to the floor, just kind of hovering, then bring it back in. Still keep it nice and tight through here, keeping that back nice and flat as you can. Then we'll do opposite sides, so always opposite sides. All right. Then, because we're going to be really focused on the lower body today, we're going to do a few glute bridges just to get the glutes firing, to get the hips moving a little bit. So making sure our heels are tucked right beneath our knees, hands at our side, palms up, just to make sure we're not pushing through our hands. We're going to lift up, squeezing the glutes, pressing the hips up towards the ceiling, and then slowly back down. We're just going to repeat that a few times here. You can feel free to do single-legged if you'd like, just to focus one side. Making sure we're going nice and even here. Then just to get a little bit more movement through the body here, you're gonna bring the ankles right close together, knees close together. Again, palms at our side, hands at our side, sorry, palms are up. We're gonna let ourselves rotate down to the right, knees almost touching, keeping that upper back flat to the floor. Just getting a bit of rotation here through the low back. So we're letting the hips move, but keeping the upper body nice and stable. All right, then we're going to stand right up. So that's kind of our basic warm-up stuff done here. Now just going to very quickly go through kind of a few of the movements that we're going to be actually using for our session. So very first one, obviously, is going to be our squats. So big thing with our squat position is feet somewhere between hip and shoulder distance apart. We want our weight to be focused in our heels. We don't want to be coming up onto our toes. Another big thing we want to look for is that as we're squatting, our knees aren't dropping to the inside. We want to keep that nice and strong, stable base. So let's just go through a couple squats here. We'll go for 8. So the idea here is coming down to that 90 degrees. That's what we're going to be aiming for our workout. Don't necessarily have to go lower, but that 90 degrees is that good benchmark. All right. Then we're actually going to go through our split squat position here. When we get to it in our session, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to have a couple different variations. But for our split squat, we're essentially in our squat stance. One foot's going to step back. We're going to slowly lower down, keeping that same concept, keeping that heel nice and pressed into the floor. We're just going to do 5 on each side. And then we'll switch back to that other side. Down, 5 more. Always trying to keep the chest up. Try not to lean on that front leg too much. With your hands, weight should be shifted onto that front leg. All right, then the last big one that we are going to be doing is going to be our RDLs, our Romanian deadlifts. So here, this is kind of our variation on a deadlift. This is one we're gonna do with a fairly lightweight today is what we're aiming for. Big thing with this movement is we're targeting that posterior chain. So hamstrings, glutes, low end to low back. What we're working here is our hip hinging. Rather than our squat pattern, we want a hip hinge where our glutes are firing backwards. So for this one, slight bend to the knees, feet about hip to shoulder distance apart. I would go a little tighter than you would with your squat stance for these ones, just for recommendation. So here, keeping the back nice and flat, we're gonna slowly let ourselves reach down towards the floor, and then come up, right back up, driving those hips forward. Slowly down towards the floor, driving those hips forward. Just go through a couple times here. No weight or anything. You can use a hockey stick, use a dowel, just to practice this motion if you like. Same concept here, not letting those knees drop in, keeping that weight through the heels. All right, so that's excellent. So that takes us through our warm-up. We're going to get right into our workout here. So we're gonna start off with our squats. Today's session's focus is going to be on performing a smaller number of heavy squats, and then we're going to use our accessory movements to get some volume in there. So for our heavy squats today, I am aiming for doing 4 sets of 3 repetitions. My goal weight for today's session is going to be about 235 pounds. So we're just going to kind of steadily progress up to that. We don't want to make too big of jumps, but we also don't want to progress so slowly that we end up doing too much volume and tire ourselves out before we get there. So very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn into face my bar, and we're just going to take a couple practice reps just with the bar. For this one, I'm going to aim for about kind of double what the goal rep is going to be, just because it is a significant difference in weight to what that goal is going to be. So we're going to aim for 6 repetitions here with the bar. So there's some of you that may be going quite a bit heavier than I'm going to go today. So I'm going to be moving fairly quickly through stuff here because I'm aiming for kind of a lighter goal weight. If you are aiming for something a little bit heavier, you're going to want to kind of pause this video, give yourself a little bit of a kind of longer break in between each of our sets. I'm going to break it up a little bit for myself here, just to kind of talk between each of them as we go. But for the most part, we will be moving fairly quickly. So 135 pounds now is still fairly far off from what my goal is going to be. It's about 100 pounds away. So for this one, I'm going to do another 3 reps. My next couple warming up sets are not going to be for quite as many reps. I just want to make sure I get comfortable with the weight as we progress to that goal. So next round here, we'll go for 3 reps. So as we start to get a little bit of weight on there, we want to progress just a little slower, so I'm not going to be making 90-pound jumps each time. So we're going to add a 25 pounds to each side here. So this here, we're still in our warm-up phase of our squats, so I've got 185 on there now. So this one I'm going to aim for 1 or 2 reps. All right, so feeling pretty good so far. I'm going to take another little practice just over that 200 pound mark of 205. So we don't want to be doing too many warm-up sets here. So I'm going to end up having my bar, my 135, my 185, 205 here, and then a 225 before I move into the working set. So that's really only 5 warm-up sets that we're going to be doing. That's kind of more towards kind of the middle ground. We don't want to be doing too few, like I don't just want 2 or 3, but I also don't want to be having like 7, 8, or 9 sets in there before we actually get to our goal. So let's go into our next one here. Just 1 repetition of this one. So we're going to make the jump rate up to 225 now. So at home you might have different setup of plates. You might just have to be doing the math a little bit differently. That's okay. So let's aim for 1 more warm-up set here. Just going for a single rep. All right, so that felt pretty good. We're gonna add 5 pounds to either side. Bringing this set up to 235 pounds. This is what I've set for my working weight. Some of you might still be working up to your working weight a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. Make sure we're having some water here. Just make sure nothing's slipping around here. I'm gonna use some collars, just that way I'm not adjusting between each set. Just when I've got those little plates on there, they tend to slide around a bit. Let's go for our first working set. So aiming for 3 reps this time for everybody. Gonna be doing 4 of these. All right, so that's 1 working set down. So at this point, we got 3 more working sets to go, sticking with this same weight. Now, that could have gone 1 of 2 ways. 1 of 3 ways. That felt good, I'm gonna stick with that. If that felt real bad, might drop that weight off a little bit just to make sure that I get the volume that I'm aiming for today. That 4 sets of 3 reps for that total 12 repetitions. If that felt real good, you might want to count that as another warm-up rep. Bring that weight up a little bit higher for yourself. So make sure you're drinking some water, and we will move on to our second working set. All right, so that's set 2 done. So big things you notice with me too. I have a tendency for my left knee to drop in a little bit. Trying to fight that with each of the movements. You might have similar things. Other people might have bad knees, a little bit of dysfunction in the hip. That's okay. What we're aiming for is looking towards trying to move as best as we can. So big things we're looking for with these squats, especially as we get into our later sets, when you might be getting a little bit tired. Making sure, again, those knees aren't dropping in, making sure those heels are staying down, not coming up onto our toes. Also don't want to be tilting forward too much and using our back to lift up. We want that nice chest up, our squat down, coming straight up as best we can. So I'm just gonna give myself a moment, and we'll move right into 3rd working set. All right, so that's 3 of 4 down. So some of you may have noticed my knees dropping in a little on that one, on that second rep. Tried to fight it, feel like I corrected it pretty good on that 3rd repetition. So just kind of as you're working through your own training sessions, just kind of keep a note of where you might make little mistakes. It's okay to admit that, just gives you something to work on and get better at. Got one more set here of our triples to go. So this is our last one. Want to keep it nice and strong. Big things. Keep those knees out, keep those heels down, keep that chest up. 4th and final set here. Right, so we can check that one off the board. Check it off in your notebook. We got our 4 rounds done. Our barbell squats are done for the day, or our goblet squats if you're just using some heavy kettlebells. All right, everybody. So next up, we're going to be moving right into our Romanian deadlifts. So just like we talked during the warm-up, main goal here is going to be getting a little bit of volume for our posterior area. So that's this is going to be kind of essentially the big one that's going to be working our hamstrings. Hamstrings and glutes here is what we're going to be working on. Nice movement to get our hips hinging properly and keeping our back nice and safe when we're doing other things. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a warm up with the bar. I'm not going to be going real heavy on these ones today. So there's not going to be a lot of warming. I'm going to treat this kind of more as an accessory movement. I'm just going to be throwing the 45 plates on afterwards. You can kind of go as you like. We are going for a 3x8 sets here for the RDLs. So kind of just keep that in mind as you're kind of picking what sort of weight you're going to be aiming for. Doesn't have to be real heavy with these. This one, it's the big focus is going to be on a nice stable movement. So a little warm up here. I'm going to bend at my knees just to get that bar up into the air. So soft bend to the knees. Goal here is we're not moving the bar around the knees. We want to move the knees out of the way of the bar. So the bar should travel a nice, completely vertical trajectory. Shouldn't be any sort of movement away from the body, keeping it nice and close. So soft bend at the knees, heels are dug into the floor. I'm gonna squeeze my glutes, pressing back, let myself lower down, coming right back up. Sliding right along the legs here. Moving the knees out of the way, right back up here. We'll just go for a couple here for our warm up, then we'll get right into our working sets. Trying to keep our shoulder blades squeezed back. Aiming for that nice vertical movement of the bar. All right, so let's get this back down to the floor. I'm gonna throw some plates on there. Now I am going to throw the collars on here just so that the plates aren't shifting on me when I'm going through my movements. Because we're doing a little bit higher rep sets here, there's going to be a significant amount of time while the bar is in motion. We just want to have as little movement there as possible so we don't throw ourselves off. All right, so I'm ready to begin my working sets. Let's go for our first one. Getting in nice and close to the bar. Shins almost touching. Getting those feet spread somewhere between hip and shoulder distance apart, kind of what you're comfortable with. And the knees are going to bend as much as you need to. So unlike with our traditional deadlift, where you might get a little lower and chest is staying up, with these, the idea is we're getting that nice hinge pattern. Chest is going to face the ground at some point here. Grab the bar, coming up, pulling myself right up to straight, going straight here. All right, so that's our first set done. We'll just go through 2 more of those. Gonna keep track of these 2. I just tend to get a little absent-minded sometimes when I'm doing things. So just wanna make sure we're getting done what we planned here. Of course, grabbing a little bit of water for yourself. Making sure your hands are nice and dry, especially as things start to get a little warmer. Don't want to be failing on your reps because your grip's going. Want to give yourself the best chance possible here. If at home you got some chalk, perfect. So getting close to that bar again. Gonna be going for those 8 once more. Set number 2. There's our set number 2 done. Again, grab a little bit of water. Give yourself a chance just to shake out here. These are something you don't do that often. You might feel it in the hamstrings a little bit, right behind the back of the knees. Especially after we do our heavier squats and we're doing some RDLs, and we're going to get into some accessory work afterwards for the legs as well. Nice little recovery would be, whether it's a little bit later in the day or the next day, getting out for a nice easy walk. If you're someone who jogs, absolutely nice easy little jog, as long as things aren't hurting too bad, just to make sure everything's moving nice and well after our session here today. So let's get right into our 3rd set. Going for our next 8 reps. All right, that does it for our RDLs. You can shake things out a little bit. All right, so we have got our heavier squat pattern out of the way. We've also got some of our posterior work done, completed in the form of our Romanian deadlifts. So next up, going to be moving into some more accessory work. This time here, we're gonna do a rear foot elevated split squat. So very similar to what we did during the warm-up. Just what we're looking at here is we're gonna be from that squat stance into our split squat. This leg's gonna be going back. Just in this case, it's going to be elevated. Same concept is going to be applying. Weight's going to be in that front heel. Chest is going to be staying up. We don't want to be leaning too far forward. We want to still be keeping that nice clean squat pattern. We're just kind of increasing the difficulty a little bit with having our rear foot elevated. So in this one, I'm just going to use my own body weight, not going to add in any dumbbells or kettlebells. Feel free, if you would like to hold one on one side or a bit lighter ones in both hands, or if you're not real comfortable with putting your leg up on something and elevating it, or if you just don't have something that you can use that for, definitely feel free. Just do this on the flat land, and you can also grab some weight to work from there if you'd prefer. So this is going to be kind of repeating a squat pattern. This time, rather than going for kind of heavier loads, so like that higher intensity, this time we're looking for a little bit more volume. So we're going to be doing 3 sets of 10 here. Let's get right into it. So I'm gonna start with my right foot. I've kind of picked a spot here on the floor that I know I can reach back to the bench. So that kind of the setup will be a bit of a trickier thing for people. Might make you a little bit nervous to start. If so, just kind of make sure you might have a stick, you might have something that you can hold on to. Make sure that you're nice and balanced before you actually start using it as an exercise. So let's drive this foot back, keeping the chest up. Weights in that front heel, going for 10. And then we'll repeat the same thing on the other side. right, so we got our first round done here. Just gonna mark that off on our board. 1 of 3 done. Just kind of keeping track for yourself. When I'm training on my own, I like to keep a little paper book, nice and easy to keep track of what you're doing for the day, but you can also look back on your previous sessions, kind of see how you're progressing. Just grabbing a little bit of water, toweling off a little between each set here. We're not going to wait too long between each set though. If you have decided to go with a little bit heavier weight here to use, of course, give yourself a little bit of a longer rest. So, set number 2. Switch the legs, same thing again. All right, 2 of 3 down, 1 more to go. So big thing here is, even though it looks a little different, this is still working on our squat pattern. So we're still trying to keep the chest up, still trying to bring those hips down to that 90 degrees, sorry, at the knees and the hips. Just like when we were doing our weighted squats. Don't want to be leaning forward too much. We'll get ready for our 3rd set here. So last one to go, then we'll move into our step ups to finish off. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So leg drive to back. 10 more each side. And switching sides to finish off here. All right, so 3 sets down, our 3 by 10 on our split squat. Can check that one off in the book. Okay, everybody, so we've made it to our last exercise for our session here. What I've decided to put in here is our step ups. So this one I particularly like doing, specifically because it's something that I am fairly weak at. This one, what we're going to be using these step ups for is a little bit of that driving power to bring us kind of standing up into a tall position. But what we're really going to be looking for is being able to keep nice and stable through our knees as we're moving up. So we want that nice hip strength, our quads. Want to make sure our knees not drifting to the inside, drifting to the outside. So kind of the theme that we've been keeping with all of our movements, driving through that heel, keeping that knee kind of in a nice straight, slightly out position during an upwards trajectory that we're going to be doing with our step ups. So I particularly like programming this one for myself because it is one that I struggle with. So I'm going to be just doing a body weight. You are absolutely fine to be using some dumbbells or some kettlebells with you, provided that you can keep a nice straight upward motion and a nice slow controlled movement back to the floor. If you're using that weight and you find as you're going up, you're wobbling quite a bit, or you're having to drop yourself back down to the ground so quickly, maybe cut the weight back a little bit and kind of focus, make sure you get that movement down real well. Also remember that we've already gone through quite a little bit so far already, so legs might be tired. Give yourself a little break and kind of back off and just kind of focus on a nice clean movement here. So for this one, we're just going to be doing 4 sets of 6. I like to keep it a little bit lower on the rep range, but still not super small, just so that we can focus on a nice slow motion. Slow and controlled is the big deal here. So let's get into our first round. And the idea is we're pulling ourselves up with that front foot, not so much pushing off that back leg, we're pulling with that foot that's up on our bench. We'll just go right into the other side. This one I'm probably going to run fairly continuously, just going back and forth, just because it's not an insanely high rep range, and I'm not using a heavy load or a heavy intensity there. So just a nice smooth movement. We're just going to kind of flow through this one to finish off. And right into our set 2 here. If you find at some point you need a little break, take that little bit of a break. So for those of you keeping track at home, we are halfway through these ones now. That's 2 sets of 6 done either side. Let's move right into our third. So I like a bench here where I'm at about 90 degrees at my knee to pull myself up. If you haven't really done these before, you're gonna wanna start a little lower. Can even use a stair at home. So we're really looking for not too much medial or lateral movement of the knee, both on our up movement and our down movement. So I'm trying to get it in the shot here that you can see my left side is a little weaker than the right. You're gonna see a little bit more movement there. And it's okay to have these differences. You just wanna kind of try to be aware of them and try to improve upon them. So that is our third set down. I think I'm gonna move right into our fourth here. So let's finish off nice and strong. 6 more either side. Trying as much as you can not to let yourself drop too quickly. I'm even going a little on the quicker side. If you really want to focus it, you can try to lower yourself down real slow. Notice it gets quite a bit tougher. All right, so that is our 4 rounds of 6 done on our step ups. So just check that off here. All right, so that's all our little bit of a workout for our lower body here. So hope everybody's feeling good. Hope everybody kind of got through that session well. Hope everybody was kind of keep pace with kind of what number of sets, what number of reps we're working for. Good job, everybody. All right, thanks very much for following along, everybody. Hope everyone kind of enjoyed that. Got a good little workout in. This one obviously is for people who do have access to this sort of equipment. On our YouTube page, there actually is a significant number of sessions that either require much more minimal equipment or kind of no equipment at all that is totally bodyweight focused. So if you do kind of want to join in with some of our workouts and check out some of our workshops, kind of informational sessions, just hit subscribe below. Thank you very much and hope everybody has a wonderful day.
PSP Kingston, the health and wellness provider for the military community.